should we start with Madhva or Ramanuja?
Your wish. You said Ramanuja because Ramanuja is the first one to lead this whole movement of Vaishnavism and going against the Vedic traditions. So
Correct.
so
Correct.
we'll start with Ramanuja itself.
Now, see, the case with Ramanuja is very curious because the early Pancharatras were primarily supporting the Brahman becoming Jagat theory, right? So, not in the sense that it is going a real parinam.
Yeah.
Now, also, that was one portion of the Pancharatras, and the other portion of Pancharatras, because it's a very vast literature, it's a corpus of a very vast literature, right? So, other portion was supporting the Bheda doctrine, right? So, the Vishishtadvaita, typical Vishishtadvaita of Ramanuja is like scarcely found in the early Pancharatra texts.
Okay.
In the later, of course, they are even Buddha as an avatar has been added into Pancharatra. That's a different matter. But early Pancharatra was some sort of a Bheda.
Okay.
Right. And also, so that philosophy of early Pancharatra is similar to the Vallabha Nimbarka Siddhanta. Okay. So Vallabha Siddhanta is that there is one reality, that is Krishna, who has manifested as the world and the jivas and all that, right? So that was the take of those early Pancharatrikas. And they thought that this Narayana, Vishnu, whatever, is manifesting as the world and all. And then there was the Nimbarka Siddhanta type theory also, that there is a difference and non-difference, both are there. But the typical Sharira, Shariri, Amshamshi Bhava of Ramanuja was a later development by the saints of that Tamil region, where they were called as the Alvars. So that was a much later development, and a lot of the interpolation has been like a lot of interpolation is there in those texts, like the Purana. Now, coming to the Bhagavata Purana, the core Bhagavata, which is the 5th skanda, 10th skanda, and 11th skanda, that is the core Bhagavata, which is before, like pre-Ramanuja, did not support the theory of Ramanuja. So Ramanuja didn't even quote it in any of his works. So later portion of the Bhagavata Purana, which was developed, was much later. And then you'll see that Parinamavada suddenly kicks in 4th Adhyaya, but in 10th Adhyaya and 11th Adhyaya, Skanda, you'll see Vivartavada. And so much so that the Madhva and Vallabha has rejected the 12th to 14th chapters in their 10th Skanda because they are supporting the apparent Advaitic Vivartavada, right? So this has been the case. So Vallabha and Madhvacharya, while writing their commentary on the Bhagavata, they rejected those as interpolations because it didn't support their doctrine. So the core Bhagavatam is 5th skanda, 10th skanda, 11th skanda. Later, everything else is a later development, highly influenced by the Alva tradition.
I mean, you see that it becomes very important, Anubhūti Swaroopji, that to address this issue, which Ramanuja has allegedly started about, and the main point I'm trying to make here is, before 10th century, this version of the Bhagavad they keep quoting is often found missing. Like we find the current version before the 10th century. And the whole कांड जिसको बोल सकते हैं कांड की तरह, क्योंकि ये कांड पूरा रामानुजा या his predecessors have done all this because there was a kingdom called Vengi kingdom in Andhra. So this Vengi kingdom is where this whole cult was there, a very forceful cult, a Vaishnav, Sri Vaishnav, a sectarian cult. The sectarian thing, it's very important to point out sectarian because they don't gel with the Vedic system and the Vedic scriptures and the knowledge. And they are morely absorbed with their own sectarian books and philosophy. And this kind, what I'm talking about is that validity or making that interpolated book, that misattribution to Veda Vyasa. I mean, this is where they kind of, it's like a नौकर जो रहता है ना, वो जो नौकर जो उसका साहब का प्रॉपर्टी लिखवा लेता है ना, तो कांड हो जाता है. तो from then this नौकर becomes a साहब. So this is what happened with one move of misattribution, and no one there to even question these people.
No. And the fun fact is, Ramanuja didn't. The version of Bhagavata that was present during Ramanuja's time as I said, that the core Bhagavata, that is 10th, 11th, 10th skanda, 11th skanda, 5th skanda, which was like before Ramanuja, the philosophy it was propagating, Ramanuja did not subscribe to that at all. Hence,
Mm.
in his magnum opus, which is the Sri Bhashyam, right, he quotes Vishnu Purana, right, but he does not quote the Bhagavata Purana ever, because for this very reason, because
Mm.
in those skandhas, Advaita is very specifically mentioned. The
Yeah.
Prakriya Vivartavada is very specifically mentioned.
Yeah.
Parinamavada was later developed. So that is why I'll see that Ramanuja didn't do. And much later to him, with a guy named Veera Raghavacharya, who was a follower of the Ramanuja tradition, he wrote a commentary on the Bhagavata Purana. But Ramanuja himself did not quote it. His original works. There are some attributed works. I'm not talking about them. But in his original works, that is Vedānta Sangraha, Gita Bhashya, and Sri Bhashyam, he did not quote at all, ever. For this very reason. Because the Bhagavatam edition that was available then is not the same that we have now. That is another point.
Okay.
Yeah. So coming back to the academic brilliance of Ramanuja, people think that he was some great, you know, academic scholar. He's a very great scholar like Shankaracharya or Misconceptions. That is not at all true. That is not at all true. The reason is, if you read Ramanuja's Sanskrit, it looks like that the modern translated, there are these translation tools are there, like Google Translate and GPT. So if you give them English words, they'll translate it into Sanskrit. So Ramanuja's Sanskrit sounds like that. Like Shankara is a very beautiful author. He's not just a great bhashikara, a great commentator. He's also very, his approach is very beautiful for Sanskrit person. Ramanuja is very dry. But let's not criticize his language. The point
No, I
is,
see. What you're
yeah, yeah,
making is a very valid point here, because people often think that there are three great acharyas of India, of
mm,
Hinduism, and one
mm,
is Shankara, Ramanuja, and Madhva. So three great
Madhva, yeah,
acharyas.
yeah.
See, but this kind of a samapart. So in Sanskrit, this is called samapart. So this you are grouping three things in one. So this
Yeah,
kind of grouping itself is what their achievement of their life is. Like Ramanuja's
correct.
greatest achievement is to be, Madhva's greatest achievement is to be grouped along with Shankaracharya, which they
Yeah,
don't
correct,
deserve. See, the main point here is that Shastra has to be treated as a pramana.
correct.
And the Shastra Vakyas cannot just be rubbed off. Like Taittiriya Upanishad says, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. तो लोग बोलते हैं मायावादी शंकराचार्य है, या अद्वैत सिद्धांति ये बोलते सब माया है, सब कुछ ईश्वर है। ये हम नहीं बोल रहे, ये वेद वाक्य है। इसको कैसा
Yeah,
टान सकते हैं? कितना भी आपका श्रीभाष्य हो, कितना भी आपका पंचरात्र कुछ भी बोले, वेद वाक्य को खंडन करने का सामर्थ्य इसमें नहीं है।
yeah,
और ये
correct.
वाक्य स्पष्ट बोल रहा है कि ब्रह्म सत्यम अनंतम। ये
Yeah,
नहीं बोल रहा है कि ब्रह्म वैकुंठे भवति विष्णु तत् विष्णुम दृष्ट्वा
yeah,
दृष्ट्वा एव कैवल्यम आपनोति पुरुषः, ऐसा कहीं भी एक वाक्य नहीं है।
yeah,
So how, so
correct.
that pramanya buddhi itself, that's considered the foundation. When you approach shastra with a pramanya buddhi.
Yeah,
But ये
correct.
लोग शास्त्र को डंडा पकड़ के ये बोल रहे कि तू ये बता, you tell like this. So
Yeah,
this very approach makes the person avaidik
yeah, correct.
and apramanic. So you are trying to dictate terms to pramana. So this is what is just blasphemy. This is a horrendous thing to do. So that grouping itself is a wrong grouping, and then forget about comparison. And Anubhūti, that people even say that Shankara was very young when he wrote Bhashya. Ramanuja has written Bhashya in his late 60s.
Yeah.
So what? What does it mean? Just age doesn't mean
These
anything
are,
about
see,
your
the point is,
what
these
you
are
know.
hagiographical claims, right? Now, the point of hagiographical claims is you cannot prove it. The first thing, Shankara was young, Ramanuja was 60 years old. These are all typical hagiographical claims, especially Ramanuja debating with 12,000 Jainas and all that. These are just claims, okay? Him being Sheshavatara, they cannot prove it historically. They cannot prove it through his Bhashya also. And that is what I was coming, that as far as Ramanuja's scholarship is concerned, he's not a great scholar. And I'll tell you why. So I have many Buddhist friends, obviously. Now the Vaishnavas will say, see, Advaitin with friends with Buddhists, so he's a prachana about that. So let them say that's non-issue. So I showed them the arguments of Ramanuja in the Brahma Sutra, where he's refuting the Bauddha position, like the Vijnanavada and the Shunyavada. After they read it, they started laughing because they said that this person has absolutely no knowledge of the Bauddha Purvapaksha. He has no knowledge of the Siddhanta of the Vijnanavada or the Siddhanta of the Shunyavada. He has forged his own idea of Buddhism and has refuted it, which is in the language of academia, it is called as a straw man fallacy. तो रामानुजा ने क्या किया? रामानुजा thought कि मैं बुद्धिस्ट का उसने कुछ तो पढ़ा नहीं बुद्धिस्ट लिटरेचर, सो ही इमेजिन्ड अ पूर्व पक्ष, एक इमेजिनरी पूर्व पक्ष बना है उसने बौद्धों का, उसको जो इधर उधर से सुनाई दिया था कि बौद्ध शून्यवादी ये है वो है, हाँ, अलय विज्ञान है ये वो, सो उसको उसने मतलब वहां पे रख दिया, उसका कुछ क्रोनोलॉजी नहीं, कुछ उसका सिस्टेमेटिक तरीके से रेफ्यूटेशन नहीं, एंड देन ही रेफ्यूटेड. एंड इसमें रिसर्च करते वक्त मुझे पता चला एक बहुत अच्छे विदेशी स्कॉलर है, मे बी जापानीज, so he did a study of the refutation of the Buddhist doctrine by the various Vedantas, right? So he took the major three, which is Shankara, Bhaskara, and Ramanuja. So he says that as far as the translations of the sutras are concerned of the Brahma Sutra, Shankaracharya is unparalleled. No one even comes close to him. Secondly, as far as the refutation of the Buddhist schools are concerned, like taking a correct Purva Paksha, giving a right chronology to whatever the skandhas are or whatever, ठीक है, उसको अच्छे से समझना, उसको अच्छे से वर्बैटम कोट करना, हाँ, जैसे भीमनाथ को कोट करना या वसुबंधु को कोट करना, मतलब नॉट नेम लेके लेकिन उनका वर्क्स को कोट करना, धर्मकीर्ति के वर्क को कोट करना, एंड देन उसको रेफ्यूट करना. Shankara has done a masterful job and the most wonderful job of refuting the few Buddhist siddhantas that are mentioned in the Brahma Sutra. Then comes Bhaskaracharya. He is also okay. Like he is much better than Ramanuja. Okay. Last comes Ramanuja, and his critique is the worst critique of the Buddhist philosophy because he has absolutely no idea. He neither systematically develops the Buddhist Purvapaksha like Shankara, and when he comes to refute it, he refutes it like a fool who has no idea what the Siddhanta is. And even now, if you visit a Sri Vaishnava, if you visit a Sri Vaishnava scholar and ask them that, sir, please explain what is Shunyavada, do you know what they will say? They will say, oh, Shunyavada is the doctrine of Nagarjuna, where they say everything is Shunya, ultimately it is a void. Huh? So this is an absolute strawman fallacy. They have no idea of Shunyavada whatsoever. They think Shunyavada is Asat Karanavada. Ramanuja also thought that. Shankaracharya, interestingly, did not think that. Okay. And then they have refuted it. So they have committed a strawman fallacy while refuting the Vijnanavadi. They have refuted a strawman fallacy while refuting the Shunyavadi. They don't even know which Shunyavada is talked about in Vyasa Sutras, or the Brahma Sutras. And they have imagined that Purupaksha, they have refuted. So this is the condition of the level. This is the level of scholarship Ramanuja possesses. So this is the point.
This is a very amazing point you're driving here. The strawman fallacy. This is like even a kid can even see that this kind of refutation even a kid can do. Like when you don't get into someone's real idea and you just refute for the heck of it, that doesn't mean anything. Like,
exactly.
But we see their followers trumpeting that we have defeated. Ramanuja has defeated. I'm amused. Like, how could they defeat like Adi Shankaracharya, who is very well rooted, like who never has given his own coloring in any Vakya of Shastra, and who backs it up so thoroughly with the Veda Pramana, Mula Pramana, that Mula Pramana cannot be negated by quoting any number of Purana Vakyas, Bhagavata Vakyas, or even Pancharatra.
Correct.
So this is like the basic of approaching Shastra, where we see this Mimamsa rule, where Shruti Smriti Virodhetu Shruti Deva Baliyan. Then forget about Purana Ityasa. So we are talking about Smriti. Even Smriti doesn't have that capacity to tackle Shruti. And when Shruti says Sarvam Brahma Eva, आप वैकुंठ का सिद्धि कहाँ से उठा के कर रहे हैं?
Exactly.
In Bhagavad Gītā, there is not even one word Vaikuntha mentioned. And this is what I challenged Mr. Dr. Venkateśa Upaniṣads, who targeted me in one of his videos. He said this guy is holding Bhagavad Gītā in hand and saying, you show me Vaikuntha. Yes, we are asking, please show Vaikuntha. Because you are doing Siddhi of Vaikuntha. क्योंकि शास्त्र का तात्पर्य जाने के लिए षडलिंग चाहिए. षडलिंग में एक है फलम. फलम का निर्देश खुद शास्त्र करना है. ये शास्त्र doesn't leave it to Pancharatra to do siddhi of siddhi of the phalam, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So this basic is not known, and when I challenged him, he blocked me. And I told him to come for debate, come show me. But वो तो भाग गया.
If I am telling you, you just challenge them on this doctrine that is Ramanuja's refutation of the schools mentioned in the Brahma Sūtras are actually correct or not. They'll
And you'll be
disappear in no
surprised.
time.
See, to add to you what you're saying, वो लोग they depend on Adi Shankaracharya's refutation of Bauddha Mata.
Exactly. So not even just Bodha, the way Shankaracharya has dealt with the Sankhya's, Ramanuja has verbatim copied it and he has refuted the Sankhya's. He doesn't give anything novel.
Yep.
Okay, the only thing novel in the entire Srivashya is in the second chapter. There, the Purvapakshi talks about Vastu Parichinnatva. So that Ramanuja defends in a good way, except that in the Srivashya there is nothing substantial. So I'll read it from the original text I was quoting from. So the author says that the explanation of Buddhist doctrines alluded in the sutra are most inferior in Ramanuja's commentary. In this section of the Buddhism, which is 2.2.18, in contrast to Shankara and Bhaskara, who use proper Buddhist hybrid Sanskrit and show good understanding of Buddhist thought, Ramanuja uses few Buddhist technical terms and his arguments attacking Buddhism miss the crucial point. For example, the aggregates due to two cause, Ubhaya Hetuka Samudaya, in 2.2.18 is interpreted by Ramanuja to mean the aggregates of the elements such as earth, etc., which are made of atoms, and the aggregates composed of body, senses, and objects. But the interpretation that it is the later, which have the five aggregates, Panchaskanda, as given by Shankara and Bhaskara, is more valid as an explanation of Buddhism. Again, in Sutra 19, criticizes the Buddhist theory that each anga of the 12 cycles of position becomes a cause in its turn. Now, Shankara leads the 12 cycles correctly in order, but Ramanuja begins with ignorance and ends with Vedana. Okay, so in Buddhism, there is avidya and Vedana. Okay, but Shankaracharya leads the 12 circles correctly. Ramanuja begins with avidya and ends with Vedana. While Bhaskara commentary also contains certain errors, and then let me go there. So for the above reason, we must say Shankara's commentary is most valid. That is also true of the view of the three non-created elements of Abhidharma Buddhism. And Shankara then comments on it. The above interpretation is a faithful reproduction of Shankara's own words of the Sarvastivadi theory of the three non-created elements. According to the Abhidharma Kosha Shastra, Pratisankhya means discrimination, and it refers to and especially preeminent wisdom, that is undefined wisdom. So according to the Chinese translation, Pratisankhya means the discrimination, to discriminate and master each of the four noble truths. Since the result of this extinction is in the translation in Chinese, thus, and then the author says that thus Pratisankhya has freedom from bondage as the essential nature. On the other hand, Apratisankhya Nirodha refers to the extinction that is not attributed to discriminative knowledge. That is an extinction due to the lack of conditions which produce the origination. As for space, the Chinese translation reads space as non-obstructed in nature. Because of non-obstruction, it is found in the things, Rupa. So now the point he's trying to make is that Shankara's interpretation corresponds to the Buddhist and especially the Sarvastivadi theory. But Bhaskara interprets in a different manner. Now coming to Ramanuja for Sutra 23, this is the important part. Ramanuja gives a theory which has nothing to do with Buddhism. And for Sutra 26 and 27, Shankara and Bhaskara give very reasonable and appropriate interpretation. But Ramanuja's commentary falls short. The same evaluation can be made for the criticism of Vigyapti Matra theory. So let us, and the last we end with the 30th Sutra that Shankara and Bhaskara interpret by supplying Vasana as a technical term of Vigyapti Matra theory and true to the ancient translators and commentators of the Buddhist philosophy. While Ramanuja seems to have rewritten it and altered the general sense, although he follows the general meaning of the Sutra according to the old commentators, in comparison to various commentaries on the Brahma Sutra section attacking Buddhism, Shankara's commentary is the most superior, Whereas Bhaskara's remarks often miss the point, and Ramanuja's interpretation is most inferior. We may conclude that Ramanuja's commentary reflects major tampering of the later thinkers. This has been established in the book A History of Early Vedanta Philosophy, page number 460 to 464. Anyone can check it.
I'm just amazed to know this from you that kind of a job which Ramanuja has done, and it's really pointing out to a fact that perhaps he was very busy in cooking up stories regarding Srirangam and
Exactly.
dismissing
And
Rameshwara
yeah,
and
and
converting the
converting
temples.
temples. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think
That
the
he
most.
didn't even study the
Yeah,
Purva Paksha and wrote a Bhashya. Like you
yeah,
are an aged person as per your own sampradaya, you were 60 years old when you're writing the Bhashya. So
yeah,
at least get some text and read them. You
yeah,
didn't even bother to read the text and you started refuting the such a sophisticated school. Do
yeah,
you think it is some normal theology? Buddhism is not some normal theology. They have very sophisticated logic.
yeah.
And at least Shankara Bhaskara studied them to whatever extent they could, and they gave a good Purva Paksha, good reply to the Purva Paksha. Ramanuja didn't even bother to study, and he has become the second pillar of the Munitraya as per the Hindu Sampradaya, the three great Munis, Shankara, Ramanuja, and Madhva. So how could you keep a man in the middle of the great trio who doesn't even know the Siddhanta? But apparently, he is an incarnation of Shesha, who should be all knowing, but he doesn't know anything. That is the point.
Yeah, this even points out to one story this the cult kind of keeps parroting the story of his guru, the great Yadav Prakasha,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he even cooks up a story that Yadav Prakasha had sent his students to attack Ramanuja, and
yeah,
then Ramanuja had to escape, and then Yadav Prakasha then converts into Sri Vaishnava. So this is a
yeah,
story the Ramanuja tradition cooks up, and
yeah,
Ramanuja has
yeah,
written this kind of history of himself that
yeah,
Yadav Prakasha has converted. So this is a
yeah,
typical Guru Droha, which and also when inquired, like I want to refer to the works of Professor Nagaswamy. So Nagaswamy has done a thorough job in inquiring whether Ramanuja's story is real or not. See, if Ramanuja's story, especially about Yadav Prakasha trying to kill him and then converting, and then a king called Krimikantha, Chola king, if this was, if this never really happened, and if Ramanuja has thought that it has happened and has written it as an history, this really points out a psychological condition, like he's a paranoid personality, and
yeah.
also who's obsessive compulsive and narcissist. So this points out
Correct.
very troublesome personality psychologically. I mean, if he was evaluated based on these stories in today's age in 2025, so this person is someone who should be saved, like who like a society should be saved from people like this.
Correct.
Yeah,
Because of people like him, what has happened is the good Vaishnavas who talk of Ekatva, their entire schools have disappeared. And these Madhva Ramanuja, they have captured the Vaishnava space. And the Abhedavadi Vaishnavas, who are bhaktas of Hari but understood everything as the Lord, this entire idea disappeared from the southern part of India for these people.
yeah,
Until and unless in Maharashtra, the great sages like Samarth Ramadas, then Jnanadeva, Ekanatha Tukaram, these people came and revived it. Because of these people who were Vedavadi bhaktas, the Abhedavada Bhakti disappeared. And because Ekanatha Tukaram, Ramadas, Gondavalika Brahmachaitanya Swami, Jnaneshwara Maharaj, they came and saved the Bhakti from becoming corrupt.
yeah. To add
And
to add to your
yeah,
list, even in Tirupati, they kicked Ramanuja out when he tried to kind of take over. Like this is why we say sectarian. See, the
yeah,
usage of the word sectarian is clearly intentional and to point out their reality. Because see, Vedic is different, sectarian is different. Now, Vedic Vaishnavam is not our problem because Vedic
yeah,
Vaishnavam indeed known as Vaikhanasa.
yeah,
See,
correct.
Vaikhanas Vaishnava is wholly dependent on like how we have families, we have sutras for each family. So, like for example, some person belongs to Apastamba Sutra, some person belongs to Yagnavalkya Sutra. So, like that, we have Sutra Granthas for which we refer to for dharma, how to live our life. So, in the same way, Vaikhanasa as a sutra. So, that some families have this sutra, so they are Vaikhanasa. So, that's a Vaishnava Vedic Vaishnava, where they talk about Nirguna Nirakara Ishvara is Sri Mahavishnu, and also talk about Jivan Mukti,
Correct.
which
Exactly.
is in
Even
keeping with the view of Vedas. Vedas never talk about mukti in a loka, which the sectarian Vaishnavas and the ringleader of them is Ramanuja, who started this whole mess in the Sanātana Dharma. They talk about, they dismiss the very Vedic view. So that's why we call them
now,
sectarian, and they
yeah,
displace these people. The main problem is Ramanuja has literally driven off Vaikhanasa from Hinduism,
correct. Correct.
forced them to convert, has taken over their temples, have destroyed the Vedic forms of worship, and
Exactly.
had sent agents to convert temples to force them to follow Pancharatra instead of Vaikhanasa or Vedic Dharma.
Exactly. Exactly. Now coming back to the major point that like about which I was thinking, that Ramanuja's atrocities, like in the spiritual heritage of India, will be marked because before him, the idea that Purva Mimamsa teaches Loka Prapti and Uttar Mimamsa teaches Jivan Mukti. This was very clear among the Vaidikas. Even among the Shankar, the various Advaitic traditions, which are refuted by Shankaracharya, to have a different prakriya, which Shankara thought is not suitable for proper mukti, they all subscribe to the idea that Vedanta is Abhedavada ultimately. It is not Bhedavada. And I'll give you two pramanas. From Vayu Purana, there is a quote that Vyasa, who is the author of Brahma Sūtras, is an Abhedavada. Now, many people might say, oh, it is a Purana, so it might be interpolated. Let me give you another good source, that is Shandilya Bhakti Sutras, written by Shandilya Maharshi. In that commentary of Shandilya Bhakti Sutras, because Shandilya was not a typical Advaitin like us of the Shankara Sampradaya. In the commentary of Shandilya Bhakti Sutras, the commentator specifically says that Vyasa is an Abhedavada, and he clearly distinguishes between Vyasa's Abhedavada and their philosophy. So it is very, very clear from the actual sources that Vyasa, like the Brahma Sutrakara, the Uttar Mimamsa Sutrakara, was an Abhedavada, and his position was Jivan. Now, coming back to these theologians' stupidity, they don't understand the sole purpose of Vedanta. If the purpose of Purva Mimamsa is Lokaprapti, and the purpose of Uttar Mimamsa is also Lokaprapti, then there is no difference between Purva Mimamsa and Uttar Mimamsa, which they try to establish. They say, oh, it is one and the same book, so there is no Purva Uttara. But still, they use the word Vedanta. So if the purpose of Purva Mimamsa and ritualism is also to go to a Loka, and Vedanta is also teaching you to go to a Loka, just a different Loka. This one is talking about Brahma Loka, this one is talking about Vaikuntha. So this Loka practice is the goal. Then there is no need for distinguishing between Vedanta. Why do you call it Vedanta? Why do you call it Vishishtadvaita Vedanta? It is Loka practice. It is as ritualistic and dogmatic as the Purva Mimamsa. That totally dismisses the purpose of Vedanta, which shows that yes, you are free to go to whatever loka you want to after you die. But there is a chance when you can be a Jivan Mukta. Hence you can come to Vedanta, yeah, and realize your own self. They totally don't understand the purpose of Vedanta and why it is called Vedanta. They have made it as dogmatic as the Purva Mimamsa, and it
And
has become a theological. So that is the point.
and here I would like to appreciate you on this, the point which you said, that's so important, because their work has become a nirarthaka work, because
Exactly.
anyway we are going to heaven, and then reading Shastra or studying Shastra, studying Vedanta has no other purpose than to
No
take us
other
to heaven.
purpose.
Then
Yeah.
why should we do that? We can as well do bhakti, right?
Yeah.
So this
No, no.
points out to their attitude, like to their understanding, like why are they doing this, to their intention, motive. So the whole motive for them to comment on Vedanta is the presence of Adi Shankara's commentary on Vedanta.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just because Adi Shankara has commented and we want to negate him as wrong, so
Yeah.
her whole commentary, this is the only motive. They don't care for Vedanta Shastra. If they would really cared for Vedanta Shastra, then they would understand Vedanta Shastra how it is supposed to be understood from the direct Vakyas.
Exactly.
When they don't have respect for the direct Vakyas and they have squeezed a Pedartha, anyartha, they have squeezed other arthas from vakyas. Like Ramanuja has kind of said this, that nirguna means not what nirguna means free from gunas, but nirguna
Yeah,
means free
exactly.
from bad gunas. Abhi bad guna
Exactly.
good का बात क्या हो रहा है? Like Bhagavan Krishna, like to say Veda Vyasa is Abhedavadi, the proof is this work Bhagavad Gītā. Now Bhagavad Gītā clearly says, Ye chaiva satvika bhava rajasa tamasashe matta eveti tan viddhi aham teshu nattvaham teshu te mai. Like all bhavas, sattva, rajas, tamas, all are in me, but I am not in them. ये हो गया निर्गुण. अब इसमें bad क्या है, good क्या है? So this is where the whole commentary is
Exactly.
just to say that yeah, Ramanuja has defeated. He has commented on this on the Prasanatraya, the Vedanta,
Yeah.
and then we have defeated Shankara. बस हो गया.
Yeah.
उसके लिए
Now
वेदांत पढ़ना है बस. क्या ये क्या
the
है?
problem is in the Abhedavada is also established by like words like Vasudeva Sarvamiti, right? In the Bhagavad Gītā.
Yep.
So this Vasudeva Sarvamiti concept has been misinterpreted by the Vaishnavas, not just Ramanuja, but Madhva and Gaudiyas also. So they'll say that wherever, like, see, that Vasudeva dwells in everything. Hence, it is called as Vasudeva Sarvamiti. I said, wherever he dwells, that is also not different from himself. Because in Vishnu Shastranama, it is a Vishwam Vishnu, right? So if Vishwam is Vishnu, if the world is Vishnu himself, so the indweller and the indwelled are one and the same reality. It is not a different reality. Like Ramanuja makes a distinction between Chit Sharira and Achit Sharira. That is not the case here, right? It is not Amshat. It is one and the same reality. It is not an endless reality which has parts, which is an idiotic theology to begin with, right? So it is one and the same reality which appears as though it is different. Like in the dream, the Sakshi of the dream and the objects of the dream are one and the same reality. But these Ramanujis, they say that no, the objects you see are of a different category of reality, which is Achita.
Yeah.
And it is also part of that same Brahman, which is Vishnu for them. So that Vishnu is like the human body, which has nails and hair, and also the consciousness Shakshi. So it is very weird, right? How the endless reality has been limited by them just to support their stupid theology.
And
It
to
is
add
very
to
disappointing. Yeah.
yes, certainly. And you'll be shocked to know that Vasudeva Sarvam, the most profound verse of Bhagavad Gita. We can say in one way, Vasudeva Sarvam is the most important verse of Bhagavad Gita. Like
Yeah.
how Sarvam
Correct.
Khalvidam Brahma is the most important Vakya, and then that
Yeah.
leads to Tattvamasi. So Tattvamasi in
Correct.
itself doesn't mean anything. Tattvamasi
Yeah.
is understood by Sarvam Brahmeva, and Tattvamasi,
Exactly.
Tat Brahmattvamasi. In the same way
Yes.
here, Vasudeva Sarvam Brahmarpanam Brahmahavihi.
Yeah.
So these are the main Vakyas of Bhagavad
Exactly.
Gita, and for which the whole Bhagavad Gita is for. The whole verse
Yeah.
of Bhagavad Gita is for. And you'll be shocked to know that how they interweave, how they weave sectarian theology, Pancharatric theology in Vedanta, in Bhagavad Gita is like in their theory, what they say is that Vishnu is the first one, Vishnu is the main
Yeah.
one, and the
Yeah.
first expansion is Balarama or Adishesha or whatever, and then
Yeah.
comes the fourth Chaturvyuha,
Yeah.
Pradyumna, Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. और जब
Yes.
शास्त्र बोल रहे हैं ना वासुदेव सर्वम, वो इक्वेट करेगा वो वासुदेव चतुर्व्यूह वाला वासुदेव.
Exactly.
हम देखो इतना इंटेलिजेंटली कर ले, लाइक हाउ पीपल आर लाइक ब्रेन वॉश्ड. लाइक वो क्लेवरली वो वासुदेव सर्वम को ऐसा बोलता है कि वासुदेव रिप्रेजेंट्स ऑल जीवास
Yeah.
इन भूलोका. तो दिस
Yeah.
वासुदेव सर्वम, यस वासुदेव सर्वम, ऐसे इसको ऐसे समझना है. अभी अभी जो अनपढ़ आदमी, लाइक समवन हु डजंट नो, समवन हु डजंट हैव एक्सपोजर टू द श्रुति, will just buy this kind of idea. And that's why
Yeah.
we see that these people have got the numbers. And also in Vasudeva Sarvam, Bhagavan Krishna also says, Samahatma Sudurlabha. अभी तुम
Yes.
लोग नंबर में अगर है तो that is clearly pointing out you have not understood. Because Bhagavan Krishna will say, अगर तू समझ गया तो समझने वाला तो एक दो ही रहेगा.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, the more important thing is that letters like Ramanuja ka to point of view is still understood as like he supports one reality, that one reality has chit and achit, right? Even though his theology is not very sophisticated, because he cannot defend the problem of evil. Anyway, now coming to Madhvacharya,
Yeah.
who is a more
Yeah.
problematic fellow.
So let's welcome Madhvacharya in the ring
Yeah.
play. Yes.
Yeah. So
You mean,
Madhva,
uh,
why Madhva is a problematic issue? So Madhva being the bigger problematic issue is because of its text torturing capabilities
yeah,
and him quoting verses from fake books which are not at all there in existence and no
uh,
manuscript has been found. This
uh,
is one point. Now I'll come to his Panchabheda theory
uh,
that there is Jiva Jiva Veda, there is Jiva Jada Veda, there is Jada Jada Veda, there is Jiveshwara Veda, and there is Ishvara Jada Veda.
yeah,
So this Panchabheda, which is absolutely absent in the original Shastras, because the Shastras talk about Neha Nanasti Kinchana. They don't subscribe to this Jiva Veda and Jiva Jada Veda in the ultimate sense.
yeah,
The bigger problem is they limit God to such an extent that for them, God is different from both matter and Jiva. So just think how short-sighted your God is, like how short-sighted you are, that you have suffocated the God, which is Vishnu apparently. And when asked that how do you define Sarvam Khalidam Brahma, they say, oh, it is all pervading. The same way heat all pervades the metal ball, the Vishnu is all pervading the world. I say that that is illogical because heat and iron ball are still two different limited things. They're still limited objects. So as for you, even though he's all pervading, he's still limited because without limitation, Veda cannot be. So he's limited. And hence the Sarvam idea gets dismissed very easily by their stupid theology. And Madhva tried his best to defend it through quotations from unknown sources like Mahasamhita and Bhagavata Tantra, right, which are not to be found anywhere. Also, he quoted fake verses. He forged fake verses of Puranas. When you will recheck the reference, you will not find any such verse anywhere. Okay, so there is this book written by some foreign scholar named as Unknown Literary Sources of Madhva as a where she quoted or he quoted, I think some 200-300 pramanas, like whatever Madhva. Acha, so now Bal Gangadhar Tilak is saying, but even if this repetition is looked upon, it has been carefully stated later on the 18th stanza that the human body to be seen in the perceptible or visible world is destructible. This is to say, non-permanent. It therefore clearly follows that according to the Bhagavad Gītā, body cannot be looked upon as permanent in the same way as the Atman, whereas the later is permanent, the former. Yeah, so I was talking about Apaya Dikshita. So Apaya Dikshita said this interestingly that Madhva का भंडा फूट जाता अगर जयतीर्थ और व्यासतीर्थ आके उसको नहीं बचाते तो. So who is this Jayatirtha Vyasatirtha? For the audience, I am saying. So Jayatirtha and Vyasatirtha came in the lineage of Madhva, who were very erudite scholars, right? And they defended the position of Madhva using Tarka, because Madhva was not a very good Tarkika. He just wanted to support his doctrine through references from this book and that book, which is not found. So later day, people started questioning that how do you defend your position from unknown sources? So what Vyasatirtha and Jayatirtha these two like they did was they tried to defend Madhva's position with their acute logical skills, and they were very good actually. They're not bad. They're much better than the Ramanuja tradition as far as logical skills are concerned. So Jayatirtha wrote his great magnum opus, Nyaya Sudha, uh, which is an elaboration of Madhva's Bhashya on the Brahma Sūtras. And there he took various darshanas and he has tried to refute them, and he has done a particularly good job at doing that. And same with Vyasaraja Tirtha. He wrote Nyayamrita and Tarka Tandava, books like that, which is a refutation of the Navya Nyaya school and the Advaita tradition. Of course, it was later responded to by Madhusudan Saraswati. But except these two scholarly figures, the entire tradition of Madhvacharya, is pretty pointless and is based upon misinterpretations of the Shastra. For example, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, the great freedom fighter and the great scholar from Maharashtra, in his commentary on the Bhagavad Gītā, which is Karma Yoga Rahasya, Bhagavad Gītā Rahasya, in the 2.16, Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha. There he quotes Madhvacharya and says that how stupid one person can be that just to support his own Dvaita doctrine, he has resorted to text torturing to such an extent that one cannot like recover from that condition. Like it is so problematic, it is so pathetic. So that is the point of Bal Gangadhar Tilak, who was so disappointed looking at Madhva. And if you'll allow me, I'll just read it out to you.
Yeah, go
What
ahead.
Bal Gangadhar Tilak has said about Madhvacharya. Because we should know, we think that these people are some holier than thou creatures, जिनको कभी भी refute नहीं किया गया है. But
So
Bal Gangadhar Tilak has
do
refuted.
you want to share screen? I can make you admin.
No, no, not an issue. I'll just read it out, not an issue.
Okay, done.
So in 2.16 Bhashya, Bal Gangadhar Tilak says, whereas the latter is permanent from the former is not permanent. Then he says, nevertheless, I have given here the meaning of this stanza according to Madhvacharya by way of example in order to show my readers how the meaning of words are stretched by doctrine supporting commentators with the intention to support their own doctrine. However, as that which is Sat can never cease to exist, is not exist, it is no use lamenting over Sat formed, Sat Swaroopa Atman, and as the named and formed body, etc. As also the emotions of pleasures and displeasure are essentially destructible from the philosophical point of view, it is also not proper to lament their loss. This justifies the words you are lamenting that over which you should not lament, used in speaking to Arjuna. So he basically tries to boil down for how Madhvacharya has interpreted the bhava and abhava in Nasato Vidyate Bhava. So if you'll allow me, I'll just read out how Madhva is interpreted. He says,
Yeah, go ahead.
Madhvacharya, according to the dualistic doctrine, I'll just see what Gangadhar ji has said regarding
Okay.
how to approach the Madhva Bhashya, because
Okay.
it is one heck of a text. So I'll just um yeah. So I'll just read this. I'll just read from the beginning.
Okay.
So the Madhva Bhashya reads the word Vidyate Bhava out of Nasato Vidyate Bhava, which is the first quarter of the stanza, as Vidyate plus Abhava. And it has interpreted these words as meaning that there is no Abhava. This
Hmm.
is destruction of unreal, that is Avyakta, imperceptible Prakriti. And it has been stated in the second quarter of the stanza that Sat too is not destroyed. So, like, it is just grammatical text torturing. That is what he's pointing out. You know,
Hmm.
that as per him, that the Prakriti is tagged here as Asat, and the Sat is the Atma, and both are eternal. So this is
Hmm.
the conclusion of Madhvacharya, which
Yeah.
Gangadharji says as a stretched by doctrine supporting commentators with the intent to support their own doctrine. This is also seen in case of Ramanujacharya. This is also
Yeah.
seen in case of Madhvacharya. So, which is just simply weird. It makes no sense whatsoever. Like if someone writes something like this, I could also read from Raghavendra Tirtha's commentary on the Bhagavad Gītā 2.16, which is more idiotic. And let me read it out to you once again.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
And it has been translated by the great Vishwesha Tirtha, if I'm not wrong, into English, who allowed the Christians into Udupi. Anyway,
That's
so Gita. So his book is named as Gita Vivriti.
okay.
I'm actually just finding out. Oh, one second. Yes, found it. It was on archive. Where did it go? This is the Sanskrit one. Where did the translation? Because the translation was very interesting. Uh, One second, guys. Achha, nonetheless, uh, the point is basically there also. What I'm trying to say is the point is basically that Raghavendra Tirtha there deals with the verse in the same exact manner like Madhvacharya does, and basically resort to text torturing. So the entire tradition of the Tattvavada is based upon this idea that how one can resort to text torturing. And let me give you another fun fact of the Madhva tradition. That is, these Madhvas declare, matlab, because they also have internal fights. So they have listed 21 Kubhashyas. Okay. Among those Kubhashyas on Brahma
Mhm.
Sutra, there is Ramanuja Bhashya also, interestingly.
Oh,
And they don't
okay.
openly say it, but it is there. Huh? So it is there. Shankara is there. Ramanuja is also there. Ramanuja Sri Bhashya is also there. And I'll tell you something more interesting. Because Ramanuji's claim that Ramanuja was a Shesha avatar, okay, they have indirectly cooked up a story that Jayatirtha was also Shesha avatar. And Jayatirtha in his previous Janma was a cow or a bull or something like that. So they're indirectly trying to mean that after writing the problematic Bhashya of Sri Bhashya, that is Sri Bhashya, Ramanuja got cursed and became a bull or cow something. Later,
Then
when
again
he
they came back.
and later when they came in touch with Madhvacharya, it took that in the next Janma he became Jayatirtha, who is
Mm.
an avatara in Madhva Sampradaya of हमारे Sheshna only. So this is the
Mm.
kind of stupidity these people possess in the Sampradaya. And they indirectly mock each other, even though they are so-called Vaishnavas. So that is the
Yeah.
inconsistent nature of the Madhva Sampradaya. And if you just debate with a Madhvite, if you debate with a Madhvite, they'll defend everything and anything except the except the Sarvam Khalidam Brahma portion. Except that they'll defend everything because they're very good at Vyakarana and
Yeah.
Navya Nyaya. So they'll try to defend everything with Vyakarana. Like Madhvacharya also does wrong Anvayas and all that and tries
Yeah.
to interpret the verse. Like in Nasata Vidyate Bhava, I showed. Gangadhar Tilakji has pointed it out, that how problematic it is, that interpretation, which is simple text structuring of the Shastra just to support your own doctrine. So that is
Yeah.
the deal with Madhva. Even though
And
Madhva's influences, yeah, yeah, please continue.
and here even this सर्वम खलविदम ब्रह्म को छोड़ के ये
Hmm.
वेदांत में क्या है, क्या रखा है बताइए इंटरप्रेट करने को। बस
हाँ,
हम बोलेंगे
so,
बस उसको छोड़
हाँ,
के हम सब कुछ करेंगे, तो इसका मतलब
हाँ,
क्या है? ऐसा है कि हम खाना बनाएंगे पर नहीं खाएंगे, या बोलेंगे कि हम सब खिलाएंगे पर रोटी नहीं देंगे, तो वो
हाँ,
रोटी
correct.
रोटी ना देने से फिर हमारा पेट कैसा भरेगा? तो
The
वेदांत
more
है
problematic,
वेदा
the more problematic part is that they have three category of jivas: Satvika, Rajasika, and Tamasika.
अरे यार।
And they have a they said that the Tamasika jivas will go to eternal hell and they will stay there eternally. They have no point in redemption. They cannot be redeemed. So
Yeah,
that is how Abrahamic his religion is, his
exactly.
theology is.
Yeah.
Eternal damnation. Can you believe it? Eternally
Yeah.
damned.
And you know what?
Endless
For all
souls.
these
Yeah.
concepts, they have created a rule that
Yeah.
recently the one guy came in this hyper quest में भी एक आया था प्रोफेसर कुछ है द्वैतवाद।
Dr.
हाँ,
Pratosh, he's a friend of mine. So
प्रत्युष।
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So even so, when you talk to Madhvas and you say you ask them anything, तो पहले उनका ये है कि see anything which is known to us cannot be dismissed as not there. So उनका क्या है पहला ये I saw this in Madhva Bhashya in this Dehinosmin 2:13 भाष्य
स्वादे है
में he
हमारा भी
says
बने yeah.
सर्वाभिमतेः एव प्रमाणत्वात्, ये एक वाक्य है माधवा का।
हाँ,
So, where Madhva is saying that, he's establishing that anything which is accepted by us, we will treat it as Praman. So, here, by this rule, abhi this rule is not backed by Vedic Vedas, not backed by Mimamsa, not a Vyakarana rule, nothing. It's
yeah,
just to protect his theology of Vaikuntha or and whatever concepts Panchabheda is saying. So, first he establishes that this cannot be dismissed by anything. अभी आप खुद एक रूल बनाए कि आपका सिद्धांत को कोई टान नहीं सकता, और आप थ्रू दैट लेंस यू वांट टू लुक एट शास्त्र, हाउ डज इट वर्क?
yeah,
लाइक
yeah,
सर्वाभिमते एव प्रमाणत्वात् इज नॉट अ रूल,
yeah,
दैट रूल डजंट अप्लाई टू वेदास।
yeah, correct.
सो आप बोल रहे हैं
And
कि
the
हमको हम अंगीकार कर रहे हैं, तो हम सब
uh,
अंगीकार क्या कर रहे हैं कि भेद है, कि जीव जीव में भेद है, जीव और ईश्वर में भेद है। अगर अब जीव का ईश्वर भेद है, पहले ईश्वर का तो सिद्धि करो। पूरा वेदांत शास्त्र सिद्धि करता ईश्वर का। सो वी डोंट
yeah,
डिपेंड ऑन पंचरात्र टू डू ईश्वर सिद्धि।
yeah,
तो वही थर्ड सूत्र ऑफ ब्रह्म सूत्र सेज, वेद व्यास जी सेज शास्त्र योनित्वात्। तो
yes,
ईश्वर को समझने के लिए शास्त्र योनि है, शास्त्र प्रमाण है, न
correct.
तो पंचरात्र। और पंचरात्र का खंडन किया गया है वेद व्यास जी के द्वारा 2 to 42 में। where these Madhvas and Ramanuja, they go on glorifying Pancharatra.
I'll tell
And
you the
to
more horrific point of Madhva Siddhanta. They have even tortured with the Brahma Sūtras. So we accept 555 sutras. Madhvas accept 537 or 34. They don't accept
yeah,
555 because many sutras don't go with their philosophy, their theology. That's how
this is
problematic these
total
people are.
this is a total Avedic approach. How can you say
Exactly.
one part of it is pramana, one is not?
They say that Vyasa came to his dream and taught him Brahma Sutra Bhashya, Brahma Sutra. So this is this idiotic idiocy of the highest
We
caliber. Huh?
and to add to that, in Vedanta we see dream is स्वप्नवत जागृत अपि मिथ्या एव. तो अभी
Yeah,
ये तो स्वप्न से जागृत का सिद्धि कर रहा है. तो you
yeah,
see the kind of soup this fellow is in samsara.
yeah, correct,
तो
correct.
स्वप्न is taken as real. Like you see, निग्राचार्य भी बोलता है मेरे को स्वप्ने में आके देवी ने ये दिया वो दिया. तुम्हारे
He is
स्वप्ने में
the
कुछ भी होने दो.
he is the most weird guy. I'll come to him also because we are talking about these various clowns of dharma. So I'll come to
Yeah.
him also. But before
बट
that, let
अगर
me tell
स्वप्न
you.
से सिद्धि
Yeah.
कैसा करेंगे? यू हैव टू फर्स्ट बी ऑब्जेक्टिव. व्यवहार में रहो, व्यवहार ईश्वर है.
Correct,
तो
correct,
व्यवहार
correct.
में तुम स्वप्न का उठा के लाए तो उसका क्या, हाउ इज दैट इवन वैलिड?
Now I'll tell you something more interesting.
या.
These people can do text torturing by grammar and all. That is true. But they cannot defend their theology in front of a good Nastika also. I'll tell you why. Because what will say they say that their best argument of theology is there is a necessary being because of which this Jagat is sustained. That is fine. But let us say Nastika comes and he challenges Madhvacharya and says, okay, I accept there is a necessary being. But logically prove with that necessary being is Vishnu. How will they do that? He'll say, oh, Shastra says, वो बोलेगा मैंने मानता ही नहीं तेरे शास्त्र को मुझे
या.
लॉजिकली प्रूव कर हाउ विल यू प्रूव नेसेसरी बीइंग है बहुत अच्छी बात है नो प्रॉब्लम बट द विष्णु दैट इज डिफाइंड बाय मध्वा इज द नेसेसरी बीइंग हाउ विल यू प्रूव
एंड हाउ विल यू प्रूव एक ईश्वर कि अनेक
इट
ईश्वर हो जाते हैं ना, क्योंकि अनेक
बहुत
का
कुछ हो
अनेक
सकता है
अनेक
इट कुड
चीज
बी
है.
एनीथिंग इट कुड बी एन एलियन हु नोज
या.
हाउ विल यू प्रूव
या.
इट मध्वा कैन नॉट प्रूव इट इट
या.
इज जस्ट ब्लाइंड बिलीफ
या.
मध्वा कैन नॉट प्रूव इट दैट नेसेसरी बीइंग इज विष्णु ही से ओ दिस शास्त्र सेज ही मैं मानता ही नहीं शास्त्र को आप
अब
प्रूव करके
क्योंकि
दिखाओ
उसने
कि
उसने
नेसेसरी बीइंग
बोल
विष्णु
दिया ना कि हम जो मानते हैं वो प्रमाण है, सर्वाभिमते एवं
हाँ एग्जैक्टली
प्रमाणत्वात्. तो हम मानते हैं
एग्जैक्टली
कि विष्णु भगवान है. तो उसको
एग्जैक्टली
कोई टाल नहीं सकता.
और वो भी हमारा डेफिनेशन का विष्णु कि वो इन सबसे अलग होगा वो ये करेगा ये नहीं करेगा ठीक है बहुत
हाँ.
सारा डेफिनेशन है उनका इट इज नॉट इवन लाइक रामानुजा हु सेज दैट अच्छा हम तो विष्णु के ही अंश है वो तो चलो फिर भी ठीक है थोड़ा सा ये तो
हम्म.
पूरा ही अलग कर देते हैं टोटली
हम्म.
डिफरेंट है तो बहुत ही ज्यादा मतलब अब्राहमिक इन नेचर लाइक द अब्राहमिक्स डू दैट दे आर टोटली डिफरेंट देयर इज नो कॉमनैलिटी व्हाटसोएवर ठीक है मतलब कोई लिंक ही नहीं है कि अंशांशी नहीं एक एकत्व तो छोड़ ही दो अंशांशी भी नहीं है जस्ट टू Just to save his theology from the problem of evil, he has created
या.
this stupidity. I'll tell
या.
you why he has created this. He has created this because if Ishvara has created Jiva, then the problem is जीवा में खराब क्वालिटी क्यों है
हम्म.
क्योंकि ईश्वर तो सबसे अच्छा है ये जो प्रॉब्लम ऑफ इविल है इससे बचने के लिए मध्वा ने कहा कि जीवा को ईश्वर ने नहीं बनाया देयर आर थ्री कैटेगरी ऑफ जीवा सात्विक राजसिक तामसिक दे आर इटर्नल जगत इज इटर्नल like matter is eternal and Ishvara is eternal. These are
तो
three
देयर ही टुक द
eternal
हेल्प
parallel
ऑफ
real.
अब्राहमिक
हाँ
अब्राहमिक रिलीजन का हेल्प लिया ने
एग्जैक्ट
उसने वो
हाँ बस
इंटरप्रिटेशन करने.
अब्राहमिक रिलीजन में एक प्रॉब्लम है कि वहां
सी
पे
आई.
गॉड ने बनाया यहाँ पे
करेक्ट.
वो ताकि वो प्रॉब्लम ऑफ इविल ना आए इसने कहा ये थ्री इटर्नल रियलिटीज है अनादि रियलिटीज ताकि प्रॉब्लम ऑफ इविल ना आए बस इसको डिफेंड करने के चक्कर में मध्वाचार्य ने इस पॉइंट को प्रॉब्लम ऑफ इविल से बचाने के चक्कर में ईश्वर को इतना टेक्स्ट टॉर्चरिंग कर दिया कि अब सिद्धांत एक मतलब क्या बोलूं मैं खिचड़ी बन गया उनका कुछ नहीं कर सकते उसका और जहां पे भी
एंड
उनके थियोलॉजी के साथ मतलब ऑपोजिशन आता है उसको ये बोलते हैं हम रिजेक्ट कर देंगे इसको नहीं मानते क्या करोगे
हाँ,
ऐसा
उस वो बोल दिया ना सर्वाभिमतएव प्रमाणत्वात्. वो ही अप्लाई
हाँ
होता है हर जगह. वो इफ इट इज वाई ही इज वल्नरेबल, इफ इज गोइंग
correct.
अगेंस्ट दिस फिलॉसफी, they'll say it's not applicable. And they'll even take the support of Abrahamic religions
Yeah,
and sanskritise it and उसका उसका छीन के उसके साथ चोरी करके फिलॉसफी को इधर अपना अपने उसमें घुसा है. And you'll be
yeah,
shocked to know that this it's not just a saying, but it's a fact that the Vaishnavism is a kind of highly inspired by Islam and Christianity.
yeah,
And
especially the later
these
ones.
have, yes, especially Madhva Ramanuja. We are not talking about the Vaikhanasa, which is a Vedic one, but we are talking about
Yeah.
this Madhva Ramanuja and also Gaudiya to an extent. Gaudiya also. Because you'll be surprised when you look at history. See, we see the invasion of Mughals and Christians have come in, and the
Yeah.
Catholics, mainly this Portuguese and all these people. Why do you think that none of Vaishnav, not even like a handful of Vaishnav temples were touched, were destroyed, but
Yeah. Mostly
thousands
Shaiva
of
temples.
Shaiva, Shakta, Ganesh ji, Subramanya Swami, इस सबको तोड़ा मोड़ पर
हाँ.
कन्वर्ट किया सब किया. बट
Somnath temple.
एक वैष्णव टेम्पल को एक वैष्णव टेम्पल को like one or two you'll find instances, but Vaishnav temples were insulated. And you know
Yeah.
why? Because Mughals and Christian invader like Catholics, उनका main target था Vedic system,
Correct.
Vedic
Correct.
sadhus. Because it's Vedic sadhus, generally Advaiti sadhus are Vedic sadhus. These Advaiti sadhus would would transform into Nagas and pick up Trishul, pick up sword. And when
Yes.
it had
Correct.
to when they had to protect dharma, so they didn't care about all this other
Correct.
man, all this violence is like Gandhiji's philosophy, like एक थप्पड़ मारो और दूसरा दूसरा भी बता
गाल
देंगे,
आगे
ऐसा
करो.
नहीं है.
ऐसा नहीं था.
आगे
हाँ.
दूसरा
Correct.
ऐसा नहीं है. जब धर्म का बात आता है तो हम खड़ जाएंगे, तो
हाँ,
हमारा जान
बिल्कुल.
भी जाए
Shaivas
तब
and
हम.
Shaivas and Advaitins have always been in the forefront in fighting these people. You'll
Yeah,
rarely
exactly.
find the Vaishnavas going to fight with swords, like Vaishnava, proper Vaishnava.
100. ये
That is the
भक्ति
thing.
मूवमेंट का वही है ना, द होल भक्ति मूवमेंट इज डिस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ
The
वैदिक
Shatra
धर्म.
spirit. Yes, the
Vedic
Shatra
dharma.
spirit.
You
Yes,
destroy the Vedic dharma by destroying this whole जड़ जो पकड़ा है ना वैदिक सनातन धर्म में, जो जड़ पकड़ा वो उसको हटाना है. उसको हिलाने के लिए
correct.
वैष्णविज्म, the Puranic influence has started, and also in that Puranic only Bhagavad Puran. So Bhagavad Puran has become like paryaya to Sanatan Dharma, and this is
Correct.
to loosen the hold of Vedic system on Hinduism and in
Yeah,
Hindustan. And that is
yeah.
why,
That
that
too.
is where
That too.
they
Not
were.
that too. Not the entire Bhagavata, like the core Bhagavata. That to the later
Exactly, yeah.
portions
See,
of
why
Bhagavata,
entire
the
it?
developed.
अरे
Yeah.
यार भागवत में हजारों verses are Advait Siddhi verses.
Yes, exactly.
Why don't you take that as प्रमाण?
वो नहीं लेते उसको इंटरपोलेशन बोल देंगे, जैसे मैंने
बस
बोला.
हाँ,
हाँ.
आपकी मर्जी है भैया. वो ये आप आपको पसंद नहीं आया तो इंटरपोलेशन, ये क्या है भैया?
Exactly.
तो ऐसा ये
Exactly.
बफे है क्या? लाइक आपको पसंद आया चीज आप खाओगे और आपको नहीं पसंद तो छोड़ दोगे. ये बफे नहीं है, शास्त्र
Exactly. Exactly.
प्रमाण है. See,
Exactly.
coming back to a point, so Mughals, Catholics, and Vaishnavas, they all are having one common enemy, which is Vedic Dharma. So they all worked against it together.
Yeah.
तो
Yeah.
उन्होंने ना अपने फिलोसफीज को भी मर्ज कर लिया. लाइक आई टेल यू, वन गॉड, eternal heaven, eternal hell,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then one book. तो
Yeah.
वो लोग बाइबल बोलते हैं, कुरान बोलते हैं, इसका पंचरात्र है, बट उसका सिद्धांत तो भागवत का वो घुसाड़ के भागवत बोलते हैं, बट भागवत. सो वन बुक, वन गॉड, एटर्नल हेल, एटर्नल हेवन. That's
Yeah.
it. So these kind of similarities make them like brothers.
Yeah. And
So
they'll
you
say anything different. Like they'll say Shiva Purana is tamasic.
yeah,
They'll say Advaitic Shastras are tamasic. They'll say Shiva Rahasyam is tamasic. They'll say Avadhuta Gita is tamasic. Because it is talking about Mayavada, even though these are
and you
actual Shastras.
and you see they'll how, अगर मुसलमान बोलता है तू काफिर है, ये लोग बोलते हैं तू you're
Tamasic.
तामसिक. So
Exactly.
you're not Vaishnav, you're
Yeah.
अपराधी, you're
Yeah.
द्रोही. ये सब बात
Yeah.
क्यों कर रहे हैं? क्योंकि that's just another word for kafir, right? You are just
Exactly.
not
Exactly.
using kafir क्योंकि टोपी ने पहना है. तूने नामम रख
Exactly.
के तू काफिर नहीं बोलेगा, तू बोलेगा वैष्णव अपराधी बोलेगा.
Correct. Correct.
बट सच में
Correct.
शास्त्र का अपराधी कौन कर रहा है? तो
Exactly.
when you accuse a verse of interpolation, when you accuse a vakya that it is interpolated, or when you when you go and misinterpret सर्वम
हाँ.
खलविदम ब्रह्मा, do you
Yeah.
think ईश्वराय शास्त्र योनि का दूसरा अर्थ है शास्त्र का रूप में जो है वो ईश्वर है. तो आपको लगता है
Exactly.
कि ईश्वर अनुग्रह रहेगा?
नहीं, बिल्कुल नहीं रहेगा. And more interestingly, just to prove their doctrine, the later Puranas, they have interpolated so heavily that the Puranas which have Advaitic texts like Shiva Gita, Ishvara Gita, in them they have also interpolated in their specific editions. Like I'll tell you, the famous verse in Padma Purana,
Okay.
Mayavadin Ashat Shastram, is an
अरे
interpolation
यार.
because because there is another rendition of the same verse which says Mayavadin Mahat Shastram. उसको
Yeah.
डिफेंड रिफ्यूट करने के लिए सेक्टेरियन एडिशन में मायावादी ने अशत शास्त्रम घुसा दिया. प्रच्छन्न
हम्म.
बौद्ध मत उच्यते. इवन दो इन पद्म पुराण को अगर हम ट्रेडिशनली माने, दे शुड बी बिफोर बुद्धास. बट एक्चुअल में बौद्ध मत
ये
उच्च.
तो ये तो जोक बना दिया यार. हाँ.
Exactly. Stupidity, nothing else. So this is
I-
the thing, and they'll quote it. They'll say, "Oh, Shivji has refuted Advaita," even though in Padma Purana there is Shiva Gita, or I think Ishwar Gita, something is there, ठीक है, which is Advaitic, totally Advaitic. हाँ. So that is the thing.
यार, हाउ कैन एन इंटरपोलेटेड वाक्य गो एंड स्टैंड अगेंस्ट सर्वम खलविदम ब्रह्म? बस
Exactly.
यही है डिस्कशन. दिस डिबेट, इनसे कुछ डिबेट करना नहीं है. ये सर्वम खलविदम ब्रह्म में सर्व का अर्थ क्या होता है?
हाँ. अगर तुम बोलोगे ऑल परवेडिंग, मतलब दो ऑल है. एक है ऑल परवेडिंग, एंड दूसरा है, क्या कहते हैं उसको, दूसरा है मैटर, which is also there, जिसको परवेट कर रहा है. तो सर्वम
वो तो
कैसे हुआ,
छोटा बच्चा
डिफरेंस तो आ ही
समझता
गया.
है. ऑल
हाँ.
ऑल परवेडिंग इंक्लूड्स ऑल. वो
या
छोटा
एग्जैक्टली.
वो बेसिक मीनिंग है छोटा. ये तो इतना 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 सब कुछ तर्क, ये वो कुतर्क, ये इंटरपोलेशन, सब आर्गुमेंट लेके हाउ कैन यू डिस्मिस दिस?
राइट. सो दिस इज द प्रॉब्लमेटिक क्वेश्चन. नाउ इनका तो बात हुआ.
No,
लेट्स
I'll
कम
ask
टू
you
आवर
one
से.
thing. I'll ask you one
हाँ, श्योर
question.
श्योर श्योर
And
श्योर श्योर.
one question is that these many people, they come into my comment section और वो बोलते हैं कि yeah, we have defeated Vidyaranya, we have defeated Madhusudana, they all ran away. ये क्या है यार? ये क्या है? I want to hear from lion's mouth. आप बताओ.
राइट. सो आई टेल यू समथिंग. तो ये जो आई हैव डिफीटेड विद्यारण्य मधुसूदन जो है, ये विद्यारण्य का जो केस है, ठीक है, ये एक फिक्शनल, कोई मतलब क्या कहूँ मैं, एक फिक्शनल स्टोरी है इनका. मतलब कोई इंस्क्रिप्शन है, जहां पे इन लोगों ने खुद बनाया उस इंस्क्रिप्शन को. वहां पे बोला है कि अच्छा विद्यारण्य के साथ फाइट हुआ था किसी तीर्थ का, और वो जीत गया, ऐसा कुछ क्लेम है. इवन दो इन विद्यारण्य स्वामी लाइफ और इन, मतलब क्या कहते हैं उसको, हमारे ट्रेडिशनल हेजियोग्राफीज में ऐसा कहीं पे कुछ नहीं आता. इनका सेक्टेरियन एक आइडिया है बस, और कुछ नहीं है. सो
हम्म.
आई टेल यू समथिंग मोर इंटरेस्टिंग.
हम्म.
दिस इज वन पॉइंट. द सेकेंड पॉइंट इज मधुसूदन. एज फार एज मधुसूदन सरस्वती इज कंसर्न, मधुसूदन सरस्वती को डिफीट कर ही नहीं पाए, क्योंकि मधुसूदन सरस्वती का जो जो डिफीट के लिए उन्होंने सब कमेंट्री लिखा, उसका भी रेफ्यूटेशन आ गया हमारे साइड से. सो देयर इज अ वेरी लॉन्ग लिस्ट ऑफ सब कमेंट्रीज ऑन अद्वैत सिद्धिया न्यायामृता, and the last
हम्म.
win was from our side, which was Vitthaleshi, written by Vitthaleshi Upadhyaya, who wrote a sub-commentary on Advaita Siddhi, and it ended the debate for good. But even then, there was one Ācārya of the Madhva Sampradaya who was commenting on the Nyaya Sudha, and there he took some arguments of Vitthaleshi. So a Bengali Ācārya from matlab, Bengal, very recently, from the last decade, from the last century only, he wrote a commentary on Advaita Siddhi named as Balabodhi, where he has ended all the allegations that were there on Advaita Siddhi for good. And since then, the Madhvas didn't make a comeback. But obviously, the Madhvas on Instagram don't know about this. They don't even know how to study Nyayamrita because it is so sophisticated in its language. They don't even know how to study it. But they're saying, हम तो जीत गए, हम तो जीत गए. उनको उन्होंने पढ़ा ही नहीं कभी, उनको समझ ही नहीं आएगा.
अरे यार, पूरा दिन
Because
इंस्टा यूट्यूब में पड़े होते
हाँ,
हैं. क्या क्या पढ़ने का टाइम, पढ़ना
बिकॉज
ऐसे ही थोड़ी होता
बिकॉज
है.
बिकॉज उसको समझने के लिए भी, अगर इवन फॉरगेट अबाउट अद्वैत सिद्धि, इफ यू हैव टू इवन अंडरस्टैंड न्यायामृता, a very good background in Sanskrit, a very good background in Nyaya is needed because the terminology is very dense. One cannot
हम्म.
just open it and read it like a storybook. It is not your क्या कहते हैं उसको, कोई पुरानिक स्टोरी तो मैं बैठ के कहानी पढ़ रहा. इट इज नॉट लाइक, इट्स अ वेरी टेक्निकल बुक. इट डील्स विद ऑल द डेफिनेशंस ऑफ अद्वैतिक मिथ्या एंड अविद्या एंड ऑल दैट फ्रॉम वेरी गुड अद्वैतिक वर्क्स लाइक पंचपादी का विवरण है, उसको रेफ्यूट करते हैं व्यास तीर्थ. इट इज अ वेरी डेंस वर्क. दैट इज व्हाई फॉरगेट अबाउट अद्वैत सिद्धि. ये न्यायामृत ही नहीं पढ़ पा रहे, अद्वैत सिद्धि कहाँ से पढ़ेंगे, उसको सब कमेंट्री कहाँ से पढ़ेंगे, उसको तो ट्रांसलेट भी नहीं किया, संस्कृत में है पूरा. दैट इज द
हम्म.
थिंग. सो दीज पीपल आर जस्ट होपलेस, नथिंग टू से, एब्सोल्युटली
ये ऐसा
होपलेस
है कि
पीपल.
एक अमीर बाप का बच्चा बोलता है मेरा बाप बहुत अमीर है. ये बोलता है मेरा हमारा
एग्जैक्टली.
हमारा हमारे आचार्य बहुत है. अरे तुम्हारा आचार्य का तो छोड़, तू क्या समझा? पूरा दिन इंस्टा
एग्जैक्टली.
इंस्टा में क्या फेसलेस अकाउंट्स बना के या या मुंह छुपा के ये सब क्या कर रहे हैं? तो सीधा
एग्जैक्टली.
वार
एग्जैक्टली.
करना. ये माधवा ने ये किया क्या?
एग्जैक्टली. एग्जैक्टली. हाँ
रामानुजन ने ये
सी,
किया क्या?
उन्होंने पूरा प्रॉपर स्कॉलरली एकेडमिक रिफ्यूटेशन किया.
या.
इन्होंने क्या किया है, दे हैव मग्ड अप नेम्स ऑफ वादा ग्रंथास, ठीक है, जैसे शतदूषणी वेदांत देशी का उसका शतभूषणी आंसर आया. तो इन्होंने क्या
हम्म.
किया, उसका जो रेफ्यूटेशन है उनके साइड से, परमार्थ भूषण, वो नाम याद कर लिया और बोला देखो
अब
देखो
ऐसा
हमने तो रिफ्यूट कर दिया, लेकिन उन्होंने ना तो शतदूषण ही पढ़ा, ना तो शतभूषण ही पढ़ा, ना तो परमार्थ भूषण पढ़ा। अब शत परमार्थ भूषण का भी मतलब रिफ्यूटेशन आ गया है। देयर इज अ बुक बाय काशिकानंद गिरी जी which is a refutation of Paramartha Bhushan and Satadushan. It is named as Advaita Parishuddhi. It has
ओके।
उसका हिंदी में भी है वो। सो
हम्म।
उसके लिए उन्होंने नहीं पढ़ा, उनको पता ही नहीं कि शतभूषणी परमार्थ भूषण का भी आंसर आ गया है। देन
हम्म।
महामहो उपाध्याय अनंत कृष्ण शास्त्री has also refuted some allegations of परमार्थ भूषण। सो इस टाइप का मतलब गेम इनका चलता है, इनको खुद ही नहीं पता इनके ट्रेडिशन में क्या क्या हुआ है, इनके ट्रेडिशन को किसने किसने रिफ्यूट किया है, बिकॉज दे
हम्म।
डोंट इवन नो किसको पूछो, क्योंकि दे आर नॉट फ्रॉम द ट्रेडिशन ओनली, दे
या
लाइक द फिलोसफी, दे डाउनलोडेड अ फ्यू वॉलपेपर्स, मेड एन अकाउंट एंड दे थिंक दे आर वैष्णव, but very
बस।
few are there who are actually from the tradition itself of Ramanuja and Madhva. Most of
या
them, from their language, you'll understand these are teenagers who are school
या
students or maybe college students, something who are
या
dealing with this topic. They have no background in anything, but they'll say, "Oh, हम तो इस संप्रदाय से," ऐसा नहीं है, वो किसी भी संप्रदाय से नहीं है।
या
So that is the thing. Yeah.
And then I want to point out one thing that, see, first they should, if they have a guru and they belong to any sampradaya, they know how to respect elders or respect the acharyas.
Right.
Now you cannot say Maniman, Shankara is Maniman and this is
हाँ.
Asura Siddhanta.
Yeah.
ये जो
There
बोल
is
रहे
no
हैं ना,
reference
ये
on.
ये वाद नहीं है. This is
Yeah.
not a vada. See, when you
This
wanted
was
to
started by
vada,
Narayana Pandita. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So they created this kind of अफवाह फैला है ना कि ये
हाँ
मनीमन
हाँ.
है, ये क्या है,
Exactly.
कहाँ है
Exactly.
भगवत गीता में है क्या? You are
नहीं.
quoting that. Say, like, even if you quote something, that's a prakshipta quote only, because Shastra will
Yeah.
not say that there's a मनीमन है,
नहीं
ऐसा
नहीं,
कुछ
ऐसा
आप.
तो कहीं है ही नहीं, मैं बताता हूँ। एक है जगह पे वो बोलते हैं कि जो नारायण पंडित भी ऐसा, वो शंकर को शंकर बना दिया है। कि
हम्म।
एक जगह पे है कि असुर शंकर नाम से आएगा, शंकर स not श, शंकर,
हम्म।
तो उसका मतलब ही अलग है पूरा। सो उस शंकर के नाम से एक असुर दैत्य लोग डिलीट करेगा लोगों को। जिस जगह पे उसका जन्म होगा दैट इज ऑल्सो डिफरेंट फ्रॉम शंकराचार्य बर्थ प्लेस। उसका जो नाम है दैट
Yeah.
इज ऑल्सो डिफरेंट फ्रॉम शंकराचार्य, बट दे हैव क्या करूँ, मिक्स शंकर
नहीं,
विद
ऐसा
शंकर।
insult,
या
ये
या
ये
या
गलत है. See, if you want to debate, now your predecessors have written works and we
या
have written counter works. Now there's a, उसमें एक मर्यादा होता है.
कर
ये बाद में पहले प्रणाम करते हैं एक दूसरे को, फिर अब हम स्टार्ट करते हैं. शास्त्र शास्त्र के आधार पे ही होता है, इसीलिए आस्तिक है ना. नास्तिक पे
हाँ
तो कोई
एग्जैक्टली।
बात नहीं होता है नास्तिक से. सो
करेक्ट
यू आर काइंड
करेक्ट
ऑफ अ नास्तिक बिकॉज यू डोंट एक्सेप्ट सर्वम ब्रह्मेव सर्वम कल्विदम ब्रह्म ब्रह्म विद ब्रह्मेव भवति ब्रह्म भूयाय कल्पते ब्रह्म भूत प्रसन्नात्मा न शोचति न कांक्षति. ये सब
करेक्ट
आप वाकई ये मानते ही नहीं है, तो आप भी एक तरीके से नास्तिक हो गए. And
एग्जैक्टली।
you cannot use derogatory terms. Like ऐसे आके इंस्टा में you'll start fooling around in Advaita accounts and then the interpretations. ये कितना कितना दोष लगता है आपको पता नहीं. Like I am quoting a Bhagavad Gita vakya and I'm kind of explaining, and you come and say, come and talk some, you use a slur word also, ऐसा कुछ racist, ऐसा कुछ word भी आप डाल दोगे. See, that's a dosha, that's not ordinary. Like your predecessors do pranam and then start a debate.
Yeah, correct.
You just don't
And
approach
this is actually a
Shastra.
problem of the North Indian guys. Actually, this is a bigger problem because they use racist slurs. Like it is
Yeah.
some like kuch bhi, it is kuch bhi. If you they'll see the person from the southern part of India making content on something and they disagree to it, this is racist slurs. It's
Yeah.
absurd. It shows the lack of
Yeah.
education and upbringing. That is the
Yeah.
thing. They don't even know how to appreciate their own people or have a healthy conversation with. They'll
Yeah.
resort to racism. They'll resort to very derogatory words.
Abuse,
It
ये
just
abuse
shows.
क्या है?
Yeah.
शास्त्र का विषय में you use abuse. So that shows your
Exactly.
samskar, what your mother father has taught you.
Exactly.
That
Exactly.
you don't know the value of Shastra, and when Bhagavad Gita or Upanishads is talked about, and the
Yeah.
speaker is saying, you go and put a nasty comment, that shows your
Exactly.
upbringing.
Yeah.
हाँ,
Correct.
रेसिस बोलते,
Also
मैं
shows
एक
that.
जगह बोला, आई
Uh,
सेड विष्णु पुराण, तो वो आ
uh,
गया एक करेक्ट करने के लिए, यू नॉर्थ इंडियंस यू डोंट नो हाउ टू यूज पुराना, ये पुराना है वो, आ कैसा हटा दिया, यू नॉर्थ इंडियंस, ये क्या है? ये नॉर्थ साउथ इंडियन का क्या बात है? हम सब हिंदू है
exactly.
भाई.
Exactly. They don't have this. That is what I'm saying. That Hindu unity cannot happen unless and until everyone subscribes to some form of Advaita. Some form of Advaita you have to subscribe to, or else Hindu unity is not happening. Because these stupidities will continue for decades. They have continued, and these people will come, the invaders, and they'll invade you. And then I'll tell you something. The most amount of converts that are happening from these Vaishnava families only. Okay, like recently I saw a guy who became a Muslim and a Palestine supporter, and he
अरे
was a Sri Vaishnava. He was converted. He was brainwashed into becoming this. Huh? Smartas generally don't become this brainwashed easily because they have a background which is very liberal in the approach to Shastra. So they cannot subscribe to something constipated. And this Vaishnava constipated philosophy, what happens is they get into more constipation and people easily convert them. Like in Kerala, there is Swami Chidananda Puri who is fighting against conversion by
हम्म
Christians and he is doing a very good job. Show me one Vaishnava in Kerala who is doing any of this.
none.
None. But Swami Chidananda Puri is doing it. He is an Advaitin Ācārya from the Kailash Ashram. And he has
Yeah,
saved Kerala from totally becoming Christian. But
yeah.
and I'll tell you, there is Chatamki Swamikal, who was an Advaitin, who wrote a refutation of Christianity, named as Krishtuptumna Chedanam, something like that, which is a
Wow.
refutation of the Bible stupidity. He is an Advaitin. Uh, But then comes these people. They have done nothing. Forget about refutation because they can't refute because it's the same philosophy with a different name. That's it.
और यार
They
इनको
can't
बस
even
चाहिए
defend.
पैसा. They just
Exactly.
want money. ये Sri Vaishnava, especially Sri Vaishnava and Gaudiya, especially ISKCON, Sri Vaishnava, ये दोनों का ना पैसे के
हाँ.
पीछे इतना पागल है
ISKCON,
कि हमको लगता है
ISKCON तो is
सब
worse. ISKCON is not
samsari
even
कौन है?
Hindu. Yeah.
ये
Yeah.
sams
ISKCON.
see samsari is a grihasti or just these guys.
Yeah. I'll tell you, ISKCON
हम्म,
founder Prabhupada said Muhammad
हम्म.
is Shaktavish avatar and he is a Jewish Swami. And
अरे
this is
यार,
the so-called bona fide traditionalist of the Krishna
बहुत
Bhakti
फाइन.
movement.
ये तो जोक है यार.
जोक नहीं है और क्या? हाँ.
हम्म,
Muhammad is Shaktavish avatar, really, bro.
हम्म.
Like, what to do? What to say? Nothing much to say.
And when
Anyways.
argument was raised,
हाँ, 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 हाँ.
is there live Srila Prabhupada उसको पूछते हैं कि अगर मोहम्मद और Jesus if they were really kind of avatars then why did they eat non-veg? क्योंकि आप तो खंडन कर रहे हैं ना non-veg नहीं खाना है, ये नहीं खाना है, वो नहीं
हाँ,
करना है, तो
correct,
वो
correct.
लोग ने नहीं किया. तो बोलता है based on the place they grow up and they do like that and it's allowed for them to survive. तो उन्होंने खाया, तो खा सकते हैं, उसमें गलती नहीं है. तो
The fun
यार
fact is they'll accept Bible and Quran and Muhammad as avatar, but they'll say Shivji is demigod and Shivji
यार
is not as
this is
same
a
caste as
sad,
Vishnu.
this is most dangerous. अभी इतना
Yeah.
डेंजरस स्टेटमेंट है ना यार ये, कि वो बोल रहे हैं कि वो लोग अवतार है पर शिव जी नहीं
हाँ.
है. और ये
Shivji
शिव
demigod है.
ये मायावादी है, ये सब मायावादी है, शंकर असुर है,
Yeah.
ये सब गलत है.
हाँ, हाँ,
पर
हाँ.
वो
Exactly.
मोहम्मद करेक्ट है. एंड दिस अमोघ लीला जोकर है इस्कॉन का, वो ओपनली
Yeah,
बोल रहा है
exactly.
कि ओल्ड
Big
टेस्टामेंट का
joker.
कंटिन्यूएशन है भगवत गीता.
Bhagavad Gītā. See
उसको
the amount of
टाइमलाइन, बेसिक
stupidity
टाइमलाइन
these
पता
people
नहीं है.
possess. Uh,
अरे यार.
these people possess nothing to say. Nothing to say. Now, I'll tell you something. So, in the Vaishnava theology, Jiva Goswami has he has written Bhagavata Sandarbha, like he has Sandarbha Granthas he has written. So, Jiva Goswami has also matlab, rejected a few verses from the Dashama Skanda Bhagavata because they are talking about Vivartavada. And he has said, no, this is not correct. This is interpolation. Even though he likes Sridhara Swami's commentary, he disagrees here because it refutes his philosophy. So we can understand from time immemorial these verses were there. These are not later interpolations because Madhva has also rejected them. So these verses predate Madhva. So obviously these are original verses of the
या
Bhagavata Purana, of the Dashama Skanda, Ekadasha Skanda, which these people tend to negate and try to like fourth Skanda, which has Parinamavada, which is a later addition, obviously. So this is the condition of these people. Now the biggest problem they raise for us Advaitins, I think it has been more than 1.5 hour हो गया, तो इसको बोल के end करते हैं bro. So the
या श्योर.
main issue they claim is हमारे case में that Advaitins are Prachana Bauddhas. They don't have a tradition before Gaudapada. Okay.
या
Now to refute them, we are writing a book that predecessors of Gaudapada, who were Advaitins, quoted by Shankaracharya himself. So they'll say, Acha, Gaudapada has used Nagarjuna's vocabulary. So Gaudapada is Prachana Bauddha, is a Shunyavadi. But they don't even know that Nagarjuna himself was not a Asat Karanavadi. There's a Brahmin, South Indian Brahmin, who was an Advaitin. But just he used a different terminology. हम ब्रह्म बोलते हैं, उसको बुद्धा बोलते हैं परमार्थ को। हम बोलते हैं जगत मिथ्या, वो बोलते हैं जगत स्वभाव शून्य है। And this has been misinterpreted by these people as Asat Karanavada. Nagarjuna is not a
Yeah.
Asat Karanavada. He is a Brahmin who supported Brahmins from the Gauda Desha. Gauda Desha is Bengal. So the Bengali Brahmins who are Advaitins were supported by Nagarjuna to continue their study. And these relations are documented, well documented in history. And Gaudapada Acharya was a Sampradaya name. It is not his name, Gaudapada. Gaudapada मतलब वो ट्रेडिशन जो है गौड़ देश का, जो इस फिलोसफी को फॉलो करता है, उसका एक पार्ट, उसका एक लीडर, ऐसा। हाँ, so this Gaudapadacharya, because of the connections with Nagarjunacharya, has used certain vocabulary of their tradition not to establish Buddhism but to refute Buddhism. Because if they
Yeah.
would read Alata Shanti Prakaranam, Acharya very clearly said that you shouldn't confuse this with Buddhism. We are not propagating Bauddha Mata. We accept
Yeah.
them to an extent, but after that, where there is disagreement, we disagree and we refute them. In case of Vijnanavadis, so that is quite evident. But these people will not read that, and they'll say, "Oh ho, Gaudapadacharya ने तो क्या कहते हैं उसको नागार्जुन से चुरा लिया." Like Nagarjuna had some different philosophy, and Gaudapada has some different philosophy. That is
But
not at
your
all true.
predecessors themselves have mistook that they were so great पंडितास, they
Yeah.
mistook that मांडुक्य उपनिषद का जो कारिका आता है ना, वो
हाँ,
कारिका को भी उपनिषद के समान कमेंट्री
उपनिषद
किया है।
समझ लिया। हाँ,
तो तुम्हारे
मध्वाचार्य ने
ज्ञानी
कमेंट किया है।
predecessors have done this kind.
Yeah,
No,
exactly. This
they
kind
have
is done.
commented
Yeah,
on Gaudapadacharya Karika. Now, how we no,
yeah,
you have commented, and then you will say he's Bauddha. Do you
yeah,
have this
exactly.
audacity to say that?
Yeah, yeah, correct. नाउ उस दिन हमारी बात हो रही थी, तो ऑडियंस जो है उसके लिए हम बता देते हैं कि बिफोर गौड़पादा वी आर नॉट इवन गोइंग टू द ऋषि लिनियज, दैट शुका व्यासा इनके बारे में नहीं जाते, क्योंकि हम बोलते हैं व्यासम शुकम गौड़पदम, वो बोलते हैं शुका तो बहुत पहले हुए थे, तो उनसे बीच में क्या कोई नहीं हुआ। तो हम बोलते हैं रिकॉर्डेड हिस्टोरिकल डॉक्यूमेंट्स है फ्रॉम वेरियस आचार्यज इंक्लूडिंग शंकराचार्य, दैट बिफोर गौड़पादा कौन कौन आचार्य हुए थे, वो आर वेरी प्रोमिनेंट, क्योंकि आचार्य तो बहुत सारे हुए थे, सब तो प्रोमिनेंट नहीं है। ये तीन प्रोमिनेंट आचार्यों का नाम आता है। एक है ब्रह्मानंदी आचार्य, एक है द्रविड़ाचार्य, and the oldest one who is very very old, who is pre-Panini, is Upavarsha-acharya. Now this Dravidacharya has been quoted by Shankaracharya in Gita Bhashya. The quote Adhyaropa Apavadabhyam Nishprapancham is a direct quote from Upavarsha, not Upavarsha, sorry, Dravidacharya. And I am not saying this. Swami Paramananda Bharati of Sringeri, while explaining in Vedānta Prabodha, he has very clearly said that this is a quote from Dravidacharya, which is Shankaracharya has quoted. It is not Shankaracharya's own, because he says, Tatha hi sampradaya vidam vachanam. So who is this sampradaya vita? The sampradaya vita is Dravidacharya, who has quoted the Adhyaropa Pavadabhyam. So this prakriya of Adhyaropa Pavada is so ancient that Shankaracharya has said that the traditionalists say this. It is not invented by Gaudapada Shankaracharya. So this is the
Yeah.
first point. ब्रह्मानंदी आचार्य, उनके बारे में मेंशन है, मधुसूदन सरस्वती जी मेंशन करते हैं उनके बारे में। he has a commentary on हमारा क्या नाम था उनका, अरे सर्वज्ञात्मा मुनि संक्षेप शारीरिक, on that Madhusudan Saraswati wrote a commentary. There he mentioned about Brahmanandi Acharya was pre-Gaudapada, right? And the oldest one जिनके ऊपर वर्क चल रहा है बहुत ज्यादा, उनके बारे में एक बुक भी आएगा बहुत जल्दी regarding all the sources. Upavarsha-acharya, who is the Bhagavan Vrittikara of our Sampradaya. Like Ramanuji is a Bodhayanacharya, who is the Vrittikara. We have Upavarsha-acharya, who is the Vrittikara of our Sampradaya. Shankaracharya, in his Brahma Sūtra Bhashya, has twice quoted Upavarsha-acharya and has called him Sampradayavita and Bhagavata. Shankaracharya doesn't use the word Bhagavata for anyone except Vyasa, who is the Sutrakara. Except him, only once he has used the word Bhagavata, Bhagavan. For whom? That is Upavarsha-acharya. And it is quite clear that the Brahma Sutra Bhashya is based upon Upavarsha-acharya's Brahma Sutra Vritti, which is an ancient work not found obviously now. And this Upavarsha-acharya was a great authority for both Mimamsa and Vedanta, because Shankara calls him Bhagavan. Not only Shankara, Shabara Swami, who is the commentator of Jaimini Sutras, in his Shabara Bhashya, calls Upavarsha-acharya as Bhagavata Upavarsha. Not only that, Upavarsha-acharya has been quoted by Panini, and Upavarsha and Panini's teacher was Upavarsha's big brother, who supported the Spota theory, the Shabda Brahma theory, which also Panini supported. And his younger brother, Upavarsha, supported the Advaita theory. And he has quoted, Panini has quoted this Upavarsha-acharya and has distinguished that these two have a different philosophy altogether. And from that very long lineage of ancient Acharyas, Upavarsha is a senior contemporary of Manini. So this is in BCE, before Christ, very old. So from that, the lineage has been connected. And this Sampradaya was equally present in the Gauda and the Dravida Desha. Because Dravidacharya is from the southern part of India, is an Advaitin. His Sampradaya is, and Gaudapadacharya is from the Gauda Desha. His Sampradaya is one and the same. And Shankaracharya accepts both of them as Sampradaya with and quotes them both. So we can see how great the influence of this tradition was. It was not limited to just the southern part of India. It was also in the Gauda Desha, northern part of India. And such ancient acharyas are there in the lineage. So if someone says that, oh, Gaudapada is the acharya, he created it from Nagarjuna, that is wrong. Because pre-Gaudapada acharyas have been mentioned by name in the Brahma Sūtra Bhashya of Shankaracharya. So that is how we establish the ancient lineage of our tradition. That is the thing. Yeah.
And then we see that how the lineage is coming down without any modification. Like these people have just begun 500-600 years back, and you see how they are fighting among themselves as declaring each other to be Avaidik or not in keeping with Shastra. So they have kubhashyas and all, as you pointed out. But but in the actual Vedic non-sectarian tradition of ancient India, of this ancient tradition, we don't see any such entropy coming down. At the exact teaching of Bhagavan Krishna to Arjuna, that's the same teaching which Adi Shankaracharya ji brings out, and the same teaching we see Shaunaka, and then the same teaching with
Shuka.
Uddalaka, and then everyone, whatever characters, however they taught, the same way, the same prakriya is employed by our acharyas. Like Adhyaropapavada, which you have said, like I didn't know that before this, that there's a Upavarsha and the Dravida Acharya, and they kind of, even they have not established our matam, because the whole Adhyaropapavada is seen explicitly in Mundaka Upanishad and Brihadaranyaka, Chandogya, elsewhere also. So none of our acharyas have done this kind of sarvabhimati eva pramanam, like what we consider as pramana. No, they are all deep rooted in the Veda. And as you said, the Veda Antabhaga, Vedanta doesn't have the purpose of this Loka going. So the whole core is Jivan Mukti and understanding, and that's by understanding. So it's just beautifully how the Sampradaya is just committed to the Vedas.
Yes. And hence, Shankaracharya keeps saying that you should be aware of the Asampradaya Vitas. He says in Gita Bhashya, Asampradaya Vita Sarva Shastra Vita Murkhavadeva Upekshaniya. So the one who is Sarva Shastra Vita, if he doesn't have a Sampradaya, you should ignore him as a Murkha, as a fool, which is all these people. This Madhva and this Baladeva of the Gaudiya school, they have no Sampradaya. They've created their own Sampradaya. And hence,
और वो
these
लोग
are
ढोंग करते
Murkhas
हैं
and
ना यार,
nothing else.
वो इतना इतना बड़ा बड़ा नाम, मूर्धु पुंड्र, ये पुंड्र, वो पुंड्र, इतना इतना तिलक पूरा छाती पे सब हाथों पे इतना इतना लगा देते हैं ना, तो वो ढोंग हो जाता है। और थोड़ा शिकार, बड़ा शिकार लगाते हैं और मुंडन करते हैं, ये सब थोड़ा दिख जाता है लोगों को। ये दिखावट में कुछ भी है ना, वो दिखावट तो ऐसी रज्जु सर्पवत है वो।
I'll tell you, Swami Vivekananda used to mock these people. So some Sri Vaishnavas from Sri Rangam came to visit Swami Vivekananda, and he mocked them by saying that, see, look at these fools, like cheetah, they have marked their body with so many unnecessary tilakas. Like cheetah have the spots in the body, they have their markings, and they have their what should you say, that fire branding they give of Shankha and Chakra. All this they have done. These are like cheetahs. So he mocked them, Vaishnavas, for doing this stupidity, which is not at all necessary. Anyway.
Hey, that's the right thing to say. See, I think Srila Prabhupada's whole inspiration, how to become famous, and his whole what do you say, that suppression, वो बहुत suppress हो गए रामकृष्ण परमहंस और विवेकानंद जी के दबाव से. The kind of
And that's why
influence
he
they had all over
name
the
calls
world.
them. He calls them
Yeah.
rascal. That's
See,
his audacity.
his audacity, उसका पैदाइश है it's in 1960 में, और the Ramakrishna Paramahamsa is 120 years older than Srila Prabhupada. He's not his classmate. वो उसका गली का बच्चा नहीं है, बोलते हैं राजकल है. आप क्या
Exactly.
सोच रहे हैं कि हमको बोलते हैं वैष्णव अपराध, आपने क्या किया? रामकृष्ण
Exactly.
परमहंस
Plus, he was a
से
sannyasi.
महात्मा, या
Yeah,
उन जैसा महात्मा को आप नेम कॉल करते हैं, आपका क्या अरहत है, आपका क्या होदा है, आपका
yeah,
पद क्या है? So who are
exactly.
you like to name call that kind of person who the whole
Yeah,
world has accepted? अभी हमको बोल रहे हैं कि श्रीला प्रभुपाद जगत गुरु है, आप कैसा बोल रहे हैं? तो वो उसने क्या किया कांड? तो रामकृष्ण
correct.
परमहंस को इतना इतना गंदा बोलता था कि कैंसर है तो सब कुछ ब्रह्म में, तो कैंसर नहीं आना है, तो व्यवहार
Correct.
में और
So
ज्ञान में
idiotic
अंतर नहीं है।
examples. Yeah, idiotic examples. They don't even know what is Kshetra Dharma. They have no idea. तो कृष्णा तो भगवान है, उनको पैर में काहे तीर लग के वो काहे अपना देह त्याग किया? हाँ?
Yeah.
According to them,
And why Krishna
idiotic
didn't
people.
stop the curse of Gandhari, and
Exactly.
why didn't he protect his Yadav Vamsha?
Yeah. Vyavahara is Vyavahara. They don't understand this. The Kshetra has its dharma. Kshetra will do its dharma. Kshetra dharma is there. It will continue. They don't understand. They don't understand the concept of jnana
ये yeah.
and Vyavahara. Yeah.
ये ब्रेन वॉश है ना यार। See, you correlate it to different events, you correlate and you suffer. So this is
Yeah.
what this is what मूर्खास do. So वो बोलता है, वो कोरिलेट करता है, वाई इज सफरिंग इन लाइफ, बोलता है कृष्णा कॉन्शियस नहीं है तो सफरिंग है,
Yeah.
कृष्णा कॉन्शियस है तो
Correct.
सफरिंग नहीं है। फिर इस्कॉन वाले क्यों सफर कर रहे हैं, क्यों केसेस
Exactly.
लड़ रहे हैं? ये भारत
Exactly.
कानून में 10,000 केसेस केवल इस्कॉन के, लैंड डिस्प्यूट के, और
Yeah.
क्रिमिनल सिविल केसेस। नो, वाई दे आर
Yeah.
ऑल वेरी इस्कॉन कॉन्शियस, राइट?
Yeah. Correct.
Why are they fighting the cases?
Exactly.
See, ये
Recently,
सब
and ISKCON, who was the head of a ISKCON temple, was was so abusive to the people there, sexual misconduct and all, that the followers of ISKCON went and reported him to the authorities. And he was not that he was some independent saint. He was a मतलब क्या कहते हैं, जैसे मठाधिपति है ना, ऐसे ISKCON सेंटर का वो हेड था, ऐसा कुछ। ठीक है? So this
yeah,
is the condition of these people. This is the
yeah,
Shuddha Bhakti.
yeah. Hey, this is a very sad state, and seeing that how they sell kind of ideas and they brainwash people. Both. I'm very saddened to see this kind of
Yeah.
thing. Whatever they're doing, the disruptive thing, what they're doing. अब बोलते हैं हम हिंदू है, तुम हिंदू नहीं है यार, तुम अलग ही है।
हिंदू नहीं है
हमको नहीं
हाँ
पता आप क्या है।
हाँ वो तो खुद को क्राइस्टनव बोलते हैं दे कॉल
Yeah,
देमसेल्व्स क्राइस्टनव्स कृष्णा
yeah,
एंड लाइक जैसे क्रिश्चियंस होते हैं वैसे क्राइस्टनव वैष्णव क्राइस्टनव ऐसा बोलते हैं दे डोंट यूज द
yeah,
वर्ड हिंदू इन द
yeah,
बुक्स दैट इज द कंडीशन या
yeah. क्योंकि वैष्णव का अर्हत ही नहीं है ना। वो बोल रहा है कि विष्णु नीचे है, कि कृष्ण ऊपर है विष्णु से।
या करेक्ट वो बोलते हैं ना
वो
वो
कहाँ से
गोलोक
उठा के लाते हैं?
दे
Yeah.
बोलते हैं दे हैव अ बुक कॉल्ड गर्ग संहिता व्हिच इज अ फेक
Hmm.
बुक okay
Yeah.
and they quote that it is not even a purana it is not an type thing it's an idiotic book and they quote it and they'll say oh see in garga samhita it is said that Krishna is the supreme one and all this. And they have created fake Upanishads, like Chaitanya Upanishad. And they'll say that this is a Shastra. And I was like, oh really? Chaitanya Upanishad is Shastra? Acha, kab se hua? So this is the stupidity of these people.
यार हम भी कल कल से ना एक एक संस्कृत में लिख लेंगे एक वर्क,
हाँ
लाइक
हाँ
योर्स इज अनुभूति स्वरूप वर्क
हाँ
संहिता,
हाँ
एंड माइनस सम
हाँ
अदर वेंकटेश संहिता। और हम भी
exactly.
हम भी छोड़ेंगे शिष्यों को, कोट करो लेफ्ट राइट सेंटर, कलेक्ट फंड्स,
exactly,
विल बिल्ड
exactly.
टेम्पल्स।
And we'll write on Advaita Upanishad.
या क्या
Yeah,
है यार, ये तो बचपना का है, ये तो मजाक बना दिया सनातन धर्म को।
exactly,
और
exactly.
बोलते हैं हम कुछ उद्धार कर रहे हैं सनातन धर्म का। तुम कुछ नहीं
कुछ नहीं
कर रहे,
होता
तुम बिगाड़ रहे सनातन धर्म को।
एग्जैक्टली जो टेम्पल
तुम्हारे
बनाते
वजह
हो
से
उसका
कुछ नहीं।
फंडिंग उसका जो फंडिंग होता है जो टेम्पल्स का पैसा वो तुम लोगों के पास ही जाता है सनातन धर्म के कॉज के लिए नहीं जाता कन्वर्शन रोकने
एग्जैक्टली।
के लिए तुम पैसा नहीं डालते हो
या
ठीक है
यू
जो
यू आर
कन्वर्शन हो रहा है
यू आर बिकमिंग रिच।
हाँ या
वो
एग्जैक्टली यू
मायापुर
जस्ट
में
लुक
देखो
एट द
हजार हजार
लग्जूरियस
करोड़ों
होटल्स
से, पंद्रह
हाँ
सौ
जस्ट गो
करोड़
टू
दो सौ
इस्कॉन
दो
गोविंदा
हजार
होटल
करोड़ों का प्रोजेक्ट।
एग्जैक्टली यू जस्ट गो इस्कॉन द गोविंदास का रेस्टोरेंट है वहां पे बड़े बड़े बिजनेसमैन को आते हैं अच्छा खाना खिलाते हैं उसे पैसा लेते हैं ठीक है मैंने अपने
बस।
आंखों से देखा है इन कोलकाता So
या
these people are like that because I'll tell you, if they even invested 1,000 crores for stopping conversion in India, that would have been so much helpful that the Swamis of Advaita tradition are suffering because पहली बात तो अद्वैता को सब समझते नहीं जितने लोग समझते हैं उतने रिसोर्सेज पे हम फाइट कर रहे हैं अगेंस्ट कन्वर्शन and Puja Swami used to say, Puja Swami Dayananda, that conversion is violence. But ISKCON is saying, no, Christ and Krishna are one and the same. They
हाँ,
don't
तो
give
बोल रहा
any
है
money for stopping conversion. That is the
करेक्ट।
thing. Yes.
यार इन
Anyway,
लोग इतना इतना ड्रामा कर रहे हैं, एक कुंभ मेला में पैसा, सबसे इतना पैसा मांगते हैं, कलेक्शन लाइक फॉर अन्नदानम
correct,
एंड ऑल दैट, अक्षय
correct.
पात्र एंड ऑल दैट। सी,
Yeah.
जस्ट लेट्स लुक एट नंबर्स। लेट्स अज्यूम 1,000 crores का बजट है, 1,000 crores, and you get a 7% basic return of FD on 1,000 crores. It is 70
Yeah.
crores. 70 crores per India, entire India can eat for free.
correct.
For not for an event, not for some event feeding India, but every day feeding the whole India. You can do
Yeah.
with 1,000 crores.
Easily. And you have
And
thousands
1,000
and
crores will
thousands
not
of
reduce.
crores.
हाँ.
Yeah.
तो इतना क्या इतना ये बना के वो बना के क्या कौन लेके जाने वाला है?
Yeah,
कुछ उससे
they
कुछ
are
नहीं
building
होगा.
temples. They are building
हाँ.
temples in areas which are famous for their ancient temples. So, in
हाँ.
collaboration with the BJP, what they are doing is they are destroying old temples and they are creating new monuments which are becoming tourist attractions. Like I'll tell you what the Bhajpa has done. I shouldn't be political, but I'm saying the fact. Even the Puja Swamiji thought that Narendra Modi is going to help the country. But what the BJP has done, I'll tell you, regarding the Hindu Ekatva. So they have destroyed temples in Kashi, which are ancient temples mentioned in the Skanda Purana. They have thrown Shivalingas to the drain, and there they have built new monuments and hotels and washrooms and these temples, the modern temples, which become the center for capitalism, which
Yeah.
of a very unhealthy kind, destroying the old places which are mentioned in Shastras. So that is their condition. Yeah. So that is the sad
You are
fact.
pointing out like this very last point. I'm just saying that what you said is exactly right. देखो पूरी जगन्नाथ, देखो तिरुपति, देखो हर एक जगह में इस्कॉन जस्ट
Exactly.
मंदिर के बगल में बड़ा मंदिर बना देता है.
बना
मतलब
देता
क्या
है.
चाहते
Exactly.
हैं आप? Like you
हाँ.
like
They
like
even do Ratha Yatra in a different day. So the king of Puri, he has warned them that don't do Ratha Yatra in a different day because it is our tradition. You cannot
yeah,
hijack it. Ah,
yeah,
that is how they hijack. This is called cultural appropriation. Like the Islamists and Christians do. The Christians converted yoga into Christ yoga and Christian yoga. And
yeah,
nowadays people say yoga originated in California. So this is called cultural appropriation. That is what they are
correct.
doing. They are doing cultural appropriation, which is just disastrous
So
for the
this is where we
Sanatana
cut
Dharma.
ties and we say you are different, we are different. अब
We are
हमको मत
different.
जोड़ो.
Yeah. Yeah.
हम
Correct.
हमारा वैदिक धर्म है. हमको हमारा
Hmm.
उसमें छोड़ दो. जिसको अवैदिक
So,
बनना
yeah.
है जाओ, ज्वाइन हो जाओ
Exactly.
इस्कॉन. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's 11:45. Let's end with this,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah. So we'll
Yeah.
end here.
Yeah.
So nice discussion. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Anubhuti
Yeah.
Swarupa
Yeah.
ji,
See.
for
Yeah.
obliging and coming. So we
Yeah.
had an amazing discussion. Thank you,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
also Shivan Shukla for being a part of it.
Yeah.
Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste. Yeah.
Namaste.